It is now 7:01, and we'd like to call to order the Village Board of Trustees meeting for November 9, 2021. First order of business will be to review and approve the minutes from October 12. We all had a chance to review those minutes. Any questions, comments, or concerns? No, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
And if there's no further discussion, that is everybody present, so I will assume that makes it a unanimous. So we will go ahead and approve those minutes. Second on the agenda is review. Yep. If you click the top. Someone trying to get in. Oh, okay. Thank you. So second on the agenda to review and approve the monthly warrant. Have you all had a chance to review that? And are there any questions? I guess I can start. If you had that ability, that would be great. That's why you're running the computer and I'm not.
So here's the payroll warrant. There's the payroll warrant. Do you guys see that?
Okay, seeing how that's up, we'll switch to payroll. We'll make it easy. No, quite all right. So the payroll warrants this month is fairly straightforward. It's in the amount of $7,326.57.
I'll make a motion to approve payroll.
Okay, we've got a motion. Do we have a second? Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Okay, that motion has passed unanimously. Okay, Mary, can we pull up the fire department? Great. So we'll go to, we have a special fire department warrant this month. And that is in the amount of $4,305. And Mary, remind me, that's basically just there.
That's their officer pay, real pay, special police.
Okay, so this is something that typically would appear on the regular warrant. You just want that this time.
There's one or two people in there that do some reports for them, but it is not their expense.
Okay.
It's basically stipends.
Okay. So if there are no questions, I would entertain a motion.
Just one question, maybe I missed it, but that particular item regarding the chief,
I can get that back up.
So he receives like a stipend, a chief's stipend
okay,
every year. And then he also gets paid for drill pay and he gets paid for the special Halloween police.
Yep.
So that's all added together.
okay. Perfect.
And there's a couple of other people that serve as like officers.
Okay, so also in there,
A small amount that's in addition.
okay, so the smaller amounts are typically officers' pay. Okay,
Right.
Are all the drill pay.
okay.
Thank
Any
you.
other questions?
I'll make a motion to approve the fire department special warrant.
I'll
Okay,
second.
okay, moved and seconded. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, again, that passes unanimously. And finally, the monthly warrant, to pay the bills. I guess I can start. Because I do have some questions. Bulldog fire apparatus. We know what that is, Mary?
That was a repair to, you get this a little smaller. Yes, there was one of their engines that broke down while they were at a fire or at some event, at some call. And it is repaired to one of their.
Right, so that is for repair to one of the fire vehicles when responding to a fire.
Yes,
Okay, thank you. I believe the concrete fabrication is for the wall down by the McAdoo. Okay,
Looks great, by the way.
yeah, it did. It came out really nice. Tri-County Contractors, is that salt?
No,
the big one.
that is,
The big, machine that Warrant purchased.
the blower.
The blower that we approved last month.
And then the other one that was a little different is the one on computer sales, $2,100, and that's the cameras following Warrant's
Yep.
photos that he sent of the destruction.
I have no further questions. Does anybody else have any?
I'll make a motion to approve the November warrant.
I will second.
Okay, and that was in the amount of $54,106.28.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Also passing unanimously. So because Norm is not here in person and we do have a couple of things under new items, would the board be okay if we skipped ahead to the two warrant items under new and put that in the citizen, as long as there are no other citizen comments here, other than the library and the hazard mitigation?
Yep. Let's do the hazard mitigation.
Oh, you're right. We have, I'm sorry. Still getting used to, we can't hear you until we say we're here, so. We do have one other citizen here who will introduce himself momentarily, who does have a comment other than these two. So we'll go to that first and then we'll get into the two scheduled, if that's all right. So Mary, I'm going to mute. And if that doesn't work and we get the echo, I'll have you mute and I'll flip mine around. Never mind, hold on one second.
Not good.
But they're on your.
Yeah, so I'm gonna put this, you can put that around. Somebody needs to see this. Great, you're welcome to come on up so you can see. If we bring that way, it's gonna help a little bit with this echo too.
Good evening. My name is Joe McBeth. Monica Robinson. We represent the homeowners at the Red Mill down here where the wall is, and we want to thank you for supporting us, and the wall is finished. And we thank you. The contractors were great. The weather didn't always cooperate. It took longer than we thought it would do, but it is great. We just want to be on record. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for coming. We appreciate that.
I'm not gonna say we've done a call.
And the weather thing, if you live in Vermont, you're used to that, the weather never cooperates ever, so. But thank you very much, because far too often we get people here for only problems, and it's great to have citizens like you come back and appreciate what's going on in the village. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It is paid on this one.
Great. So again, very nice to have citizens come back to actually acknowledge when things are going well in the village, which we know that happens quite often. So with that, why don't we, Matthew, you had a suggestion to have Michael go first?
I think that's a good idea.
Sure. So Michael, you can go ahead and reintroduce yourself. I think we all know you, but, and then.
Okay, well, just for everybody who doesn't know me, I'm Michael Batcher. I'm with the Bennington County Regional Commission. And I'm going to help you complete your hazard mitigation plan, which we did 5 years ago, 6 years, no, 4 years ago, because it's not due till next year, I think. But we want to get that done so that you're current. So you managed to get a grant from Vermont Emergency Management, and you put out an RFP and you contracted with BCRC to do that. So what we were going to talk about tonight was the process a bit, and also forming a planning team. So I had sent you all a multi-page short version of how this works. Do you all have that? Because that would be a little easier if we could go through that pretty quickly.
Yep.
Okay, it's called Hazard Mitigation Planning, a quick how-to. Yeah, no?
Got it. Yep.
Sorry, yes.
Okay, well, this is sort of this isn't sort of, this is a step-by-step process that describes what we do. And most of this is also reflected in the agreement that you entered into with BCRC. By the way, can you hear me okay? Am I coming across all right?
Yes.
Okay, good. So one of the things we need to do, but let's get to that a little later, is form a planning team. And the reason the planning team is critical is because they're the ones who I work with to get all the other steps done, and they make the key decisions. I'm primarily an information source and map maker and those kinds of things, but you all need to provide information about the village, because otherwise I'm in the dark. So what this involves is looking at the various potential hazards, let's just, and what their potential impact is on the village. And a large part of this is also reaching out to people, making sure that the public is involved. I think we talked about that a little bit before, that if you ever get a website going, that would be great. Otherwise, your Facebook page and Front Porch Forum, village newsletter, if you have one, anything we can put out, it would be a great way to just get people's input. Endorse it. We did a survey, did a Survey Monkey survey. It was just 10 questions. Didn't take people very long, but it gave us a sense of what they thought was and was important. And also gave a list of people who would be interested in getting more information. So where it starts to get mucky is where we have to create what's called a vulnerability assessment, which is basically if we have 10 hazards, which are the ones most problematic? So I don't want to bias you, but things like flooding and windstorms and winter storms are generally pretty problematic. Things like in North Bennington, probably, actually I shouldn't say landslides are not important, because I'm pretty sure I remember we talked about some wall. Maybe it was on Water Street last time. That was an issue, but it's not like you're in California where the entire roads are being wiped out because of erosion and that stuff. So some of those are a bit less critical, and therefore we can focus our mitigation actions on the ones that are the most critical. And if you go to the second page, you'll see a whole list of a little table, and it lists the different hazards from the state plan. And this, by the way, this presentation was developed for Dorset, so that's why it says Town Hazard Mitigation Plan. But you'll probably use many of the same ones, and we'll look into those kinds of hazards, and I'll be collecting lots of information. A lot of that's still in your existing plan. You just have to update it to 2020, because there's 5 years of things happening in between. Then the next step is to look at the capabilities of North Bennington. We did that before. If you look at your current plan, there's a list of what town has in the way of bylaws, a village, I'm sorry, not town, a village plan, staffing and the like. and where there might be somewhere areas where you need to strengthen, because it's really your capabilities are going to make a difference with respect to implementing these mitigation actions. So the next step is then to look at these. I think I mentioned the vulnerability assessment. When we look at the likelihood of these things occurring, if you look at pages 4 and 5 real quick, you'll see we basically rank them in Dorset as to their frequency, their potential impacts, and a total score. And there, winter storms, high wind events, infectious diseases. Guess where that came from? And flooding were the critical ones. And then we develop mitigation measures. So mitigation measures may be, well, I think I said this last time at the last meeting that we talked about relocating the firehouse because that's where your shelter is. Or are there buildings that could be flood proofed? Is there anything that could be done with the dam? Because I think you're in an inundation zone. Is there one thing I think we try to talk about a little bit? Is your water supply adequately protected? Do you have enough land to protect it? I'm just making these things up. I'm not saying that there's an issue, but it'd be things worth considering because those are important assets for the town, the village. Are there any other assets that you're concerned about that we would need to make specific protection on? And then we come up with a bunch of actions. And some of these are for sort of generic, like all hazards, and some are specific to flooding or windstorms or whatever. Some of these are informational, getting people to understand that they may need to shelter in place, or they may need to have some extra food and water stored in case there are power outages. Maybe letting people know that that's something to think about this weekend. We're having a big snowstorm coming, so run out and empty the shelves. There may be other things that they might want to be able to do, like keeping batteries and flashlights and all that kind of stuff. Another issue is sort of longer term things that may occur. I don't know if the village is vulnerable to this, but in some cases drought, especially in many rural areas, are an issue because people are on wells, and we just don't pay attention to the droughts occurring. It hasn't rained for a while, and most of us think, well, that's great, you don't have to mow the lawn. But that can be, I've lived in a place where we've lost our well several times, and that can be kind of difficult to deal with if you don't know when it's going to come back. So letting people know that that's occurring, just giving warnings to people so that they're aware, and that can be done through Facebook or web pages or whatever. So those are the kinds of actions. And like I said, we talked about the firehouse, and there may be others. We should look at the ones you've already come up with from last time and see if there are any of those that are still relevant, or we want to continue them, or if there's any things we want to add to. So the key points in all this is that we go through this sort of linear process. I'm going to give you a lot of information. But when I come up with events in the past of, let's say, windstorms, it's important if the planning team can look at that and go, oh yeah, that affected North Bennington, or oh no, we don't even know anything about that, or you missed one. There was one back in, when I was working the Rupert plan, they kind of came up with really low temperatures, which I hadn't seen recorded anywhere. So that's important to know, that you might have local information that the weather stations don't capture. So that's basically the process, and it generally takes anywhere between 6 months and a year to do this, primarily because people are busy and getting meetings. It does take me a while to get the information together. What I should tell you, what I started to do, and I hope this is okay with you, is I pulled out the existing plan and I just started updating tables and information and things in there, like there's a table in there of how many buildings of different types there are, how many single family homes and multi-family homes and the like. It hasn't changed much, but it's just updating that. There's a lot of things I will need help updating, critical facilities and the like. And again, so much of that information is basically, like I said, going from 2014 or 2015, where we stopped, to going to 2020 and probably to 2021. A lot of that data comes out at the end of a calendar year. So data from the weather systems, weather services is collected, and it's not really accessible until the end of the year. Same with infectious diseases. I have some data from Vermont Department of Health on COVID, and they explained to me that even though they gave it to me like in March, it's provisional and they won't have it straightened out till next year sometime. But it at least gives us some idea of what's going on. And plus we can use other sources to give an indication. And if you have any local knowledge of issues with respect to COVID that have come up that that we might need to deal with. Before COVID, the big issue was Lyme disease. And that was the #1 infectious disease in Vermont. And again, you're not going to go out and wipe out all the ticks, but you can certainly make people aware, or visitors come aware, that when they go hiking in the woods, they should protect themselves and their pets and the like. So that's the quick rundown. I'm glad to answer any questions. I could spend more time on this, but whoever gets to be on the planning team is going to wade into this and wish they had never heard from me again.
So our understanding is the next step is or the first step really is for us to name who is in that planning team and remind them that numbers, what in your experience has been a good number, too many, too few, or is there really any guidelines to that?
There really aren't any guidelines. It's important. It'd be good to have somebody from the trustees, one of the trustees.
Yep.
I imagine your building inspector and your fire chief would be pretty important people. Maybe you want something from somebody from the town because you depend on them for certain services. Maybe you want somebody from the does the trustees, or you serve as the water board for the village?
No, we have a separate water board.
Okay.
So somebody from the water board.
Possibly, yeah. I mean, I'm relying on you to tell me. That seems like a pretty important facility, and became even more important after the water system had to be expanded to help out the town. So,
So
anybody from any businesses that might be worth involving, or the school, major organizations or institutions. It doesn't have to be huge, and it could be just a core group of 3 or 4 people, and then we pull other people in for specific meetings and the like, so that people aren't sitting there wondering why we're talking about something that has nothing to do with what they're doing, but they're an important resource when we're talking about their assets.
Okay. And just ballpark, because when we approach these people, they're probably going to want to know what kind of time commitment what they're looking at. Like roughly, you try to meet how often?
We've generally
in very rough terms.
We've generally had anywhere between 4 and 5 meetings. The thing is, not so much. I'm not a big fan of long, lengthy meetings. What I would prefer is if I can give people something and they can give me feedback. In other words, if I give you a description of events that have occurred that may have affected North Bennington, we could sit there in a meeting for 5 hours and discuss it, or people could just sit there and while they're watching whatever football team they like and go through it and make some notes, and then we could get together and have a much more productive meeting, I think. But if we try to go through this stuff, can be really mind-numbing, and so I think also. I would need, if we're looking at what are critical areas or what are vulnerable areas, we need pull together a map, and we can do that either on paper. Or I can come along with a screen, and we can mark things using GIS. There's lots of different ways to make that interesting and useful. But the meetings don't have to be long and drawn out, but they have to be enough to get people have to be prepared. I guess that's the key. If someone doesn't read something and they kind of go, okay, what are we talking about here? Then that kind of slows the process down. Sure. So there's a little bit of homework, more homework than long-term meetings. Okay. That's my process anyway. I'd rather give you something, you tell me it doesn't work, it's totally wrong, redo it, than sit there in a meeting and try to wordsmith and hash out things.
Sure. And the target time to have at least the original planning team together, sooner the better, I assume.
No.
Yeah, well, we could do it anytime you want. Though this is getting into the holidays, so maybe you want to start the new year. We could have a planning meeting in December or sometime soon, and I could just go over things with them, and then we could start in the new year.
Okay.
And
But getting
you know,
it, getting it,
this is hard. It's deer hunting season,
Right.
the
but at least,
holidays.
yeah, I'm talking more in terms of just making the contacts and getting commitment.
Yes.
for people.
Yeah,
That's a now item, and
that
then
would be
we
great. Yeah,
possibly
And I-
another meeting in December, just to kind of
sure.
light information meeting, and then the real work will probably start after the new year.
Yeah, and I would need someone who's going to be my key contact to whoever. I mean, I don't want to have to call everybody and organize the meeting. So if someone's the meeting organizer and we say, okay, we're going to meet on 2 weeks from now.
Yep.
However we do it, whether it's by Zoom or in person or whatever works for people.
So Mark, I put some thought into this, and I'm pretty sure that I want to tap Norm and Ed Myers. And I think with Michael's suggestion, we ought to probably ask Ted Fella from the water department as the head of the water department.
Yep. Well, it can either be Ted, or I've also had several meetings with Dave Shaughnessy, who's the chair of their board. Either of those would work. But making contact with both of them and letting them decide would be.
Yeah,
fine.
I think Ted would be better just with the day to day and having
Sure.
been there through the through the PFOA stuff, and I think he has a better working knowledge of the although that's fine if we'll let their board decide who
Sure.
should be on that. And then maybe maybe a member of the school board, whether that be the public side or the independent side. It might be worth having the headmaster involved with that. Tim.
I would think that he, he's also roughly a resident. He's right down the street, so.
Right. Right, he'd be a good resident. I mean, he's
Mm-hmm.
technically in Shaftesbury, but he's, fully
He's
engaged.
in the school district though, so he could still.
That's
speak on
correct.
School stuff. So
And I
possibly-
think that pretty much, does what we need. And then if there are any particular questions that we need to reach out to individuals about, it's not our first rodeo with this process, and I think Michael's right. There's not a whole lot that I think it's nice to get together and maybe joggle the mind about things that maybe we've missed out on, and nothing like a couple of years of COVID and self-reflection to maybe have a look at that. But obviously Norm is a great resource for this, and Ed, who's always been, kind of the point person for various emergency management issues. And as I understand it, we're going to lose him at least formally as with the fire department. So
Do we know what that, is there an effective date to that?
I believe I heard that.
Okay, so Mary said she thinks maybe May, but even with that, again, he's also a village resident, so with his experience through the years.
Right.
It's a positive that he's a current member of the fire department and the chief, but even when that stops, could still be a valuable member of this team, especially if we're talking about maybe a years-long process anyway, so.
doesn't change anything what his status is. Yeah.
Right, still, yeah.
So I think we can get that together, and other than the fact that it's difficult to get a hold of Ed, other than text message, I don't have an email, and I don't know, Lori, does he?
Mary says he doesn't have one.
Yeah.
No, Ed Harrington does, but Ed Myers does not.
I can reach out to Ed.
And you or I can speak to Norm about this. I think it's kind of a with Norm, it's part of his job to partake in this. you know, and I know he'll be willing to do so because he's got a lot of, he's got a broad perspective on what he sees day to day. And
He's a good, obviously, he's dealt with any issues we've had over the last 5 years. He's had to deal with, so he would be able to, I'm sure he keeps track of a lot of it. He's very efficient in keeping track of this, so obviously he would be able to post major snow events and any flooding, any kind of natural issues we, sure. So with that, do we have a board member that's interested in being a member of this team?
I'm willing to be the point person and the attendee of these meetings as I can. It's kind of unclear how around I will be in the next 6 months, 8 months, but I can certainly do the, you know, the notifications and the stuff that Michael needs, so he doesn't have to. Again, I wish Ed would get an email address, but I have
usually we don't reach him by phone. I mean,
I have his text and
Yeah.
he's good about that. So
All right, so if you wanted, I mean, I'd be thrilled with that, and I would certainly be able to step in anytime you're not able to attend. And well, I mean, just to keep informed, if you're gonna deal with all the notifications, I'll try to attend the meeting, whether you're there or not.
that sounds great.
Just so I could be informed, then if I do have to step in and you're not there, I can at least fill the void with some background knowledge, so.
and
we
can certainly see.
You can tag team that if you'd like, unless we have anybody else that would like to. I know you got your hands full with some other things. And Aaron, I know probably not the time to jump into something like this, I assume. So, okay,
Yeah, as it goes into next year, I'm just unsure about
sure.
the
The
next,
whole pit.
the next go.
So it sounds like we've got a very good starting place. We've got 5, 6 names that at least are potentials, and I don't see any reason why many of them won't jump right in. They've been very cooperative in the past with things like this, so.
Yeah, sounds great.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mary had one question.
I guess maybe my question is also for Michael. We have a railroad that crosses through our village at 3 different points. That railroad sometimes has cars containing, I don't know if it's hazardous materials or not. Are the hazards that you're talking about mostly natural events, or could it be something like a spill of something from a railroad? Or we also have a feed mill over here, and they mix fertilizers and God knows what all. And those things have been known to explode on occasion. Are those types of hazards included in your analysis?
We can certainly include them. I mean, I usually include hazardous material spills because we have some good information on that. The caveat is that FEMA, which ultimately makes decisions about whether or not you'll get a grant for these kinds of things, only focuses on natural hazards. So they're not going to give you money to fix the railroad, though fixing the railroad is like, there's a whole, that's a whole other realm. But that doesn't mean we can't identify them and have the town be thinking, or the village be thinking about, okay, are there other issues we can, other ways we can deal with some of this stuff? I don't know if the problem, I've seen, I guess they're backing into Whitman's from time to time, and they block off that whole road near the North Bennington Variety. I don't know if that's an issue for the village or what, but yeah, it is can be kind of an interesting little waltz watching those engines go back and forth. So yeah, I think we can certainly identify this, but you probably won't get so much support from FEMA on it. That's all I can say.
Well,
That doesn't mean we can't look at it.
yeah, there's just a possibility of wetlands being destroyed. Because
Oh, that
that's
for sure. Yes.
right by some, very critical wetlands. And,
Yeah, because that would affect your flooding. So we can definitely look at that.
somebody's plan, I don't know.
Yeah, we can look at wetland issues because that would affect flooding and other kinds of things.
Were there also cars with some sort of gas parked for a while on the train tracks? Wasn't that an issue too?
I remember that was an issue in Shasbury, wasn't it?
And here too, down at
Was it
the,
Right down, yeah, right over where the overlay pass
It was-
is,
it
they
was-
park things.
Yeah, it was where they were storing their propane or their natural gas over the winter. It was kind of like they were basically using them as a storage area. And
Yeah.
I think that, I don't know, I don't even remember what I read in the banner. I don't remember what happened, but I haven't seen them in a while. But it's winter time, so
You will see it again, and as much as our local legislators have tried to resolve the situation, and as much as some great help from Bennington College and people there who are trying to get some resolve with that, nothing has changed. The railroad is maintaining their sovereignty over the land that they control, and you will see those cars parked there again.
yeah.
So those are issues, you know. I know that, Michael, that's probably outside of your, but those would be things we might want to include in our report about our concerns with that, because there are, well, I think there were 150 cars with LNG. You know, those cars are designed to be bulletproof, literally, but it is probably one of the greater possible hazards that we have, and yet we, even at the state level, have had no real success at resolving.
Yeah, well, we should look at it, but yeah, the railroad is very, very difficult to deal with.
Indeed.
They're like another country.
Pretty much. Very interestingly bordered country, right? Like all these little strips of land that they own.
Yes, yeah.
Their own nation. Yeah.
Yeah, I was involved for several years, and we acquired some land from the railroad over in Hoosick Falls. We created a greenway, and they had a survey, whole thing, and they needed to widen their tracks, and they came onto the village property over there, Village of Hoosick Falls, and took down a whole hill and did whatever they wanted.
Yep.
And what are you going to do? You're going to go ahead. It's pretty hard to see the railroad.
They are talk to the railroad, let alone.
Yeah.
All right, so
Anyway.
I guess our next, oh, I'm sorry, Matthew, go ahead.
No, go ahead. That's so the next step is maybe trying, maybe in the first trimester of December,
Mhm.
to get at least, you know, 2/3 of these possible people together for a brief meeting. And
That'd be great.
So as soon as we, so I guess the next step we should do is we'll make contact with these folks and let you know when we are ready to make that initial.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect. So Matthew, you and I can kind of divvy it up in making some contacts, and we can take care of that.
Yep.
Excuse me. All right, if there's nothing else, oh, Aaron?
Right, just one thing, and I can help with this too, if it helps to have someone from the college involved. It might, so let me think about it. We can just be in discussion about it. Who would be right?
I think
Yeah,
that
no,
makes-
Yeah,
that's
the
great.
college is a major landholder and institution and has a lot of facilities, so they might have things that they're concerned about.
good.
Not to
So they're up
mention,
in the hill.
every time we kind of get into a relationship with them, it's very beneficial for other things that come up. And we've had some great experiences with that over the past several years. So
Good.
that's a great point, Aaron. Thank you.
There also might be students interested in this that could help in ways, so.
Sure. That'd be great.
Great networking, Aaron. Very good. Love it. Yep.
Do you teach at the college, Aaron? Is that?
No, I work in buildings and grounds, but I also run the Robert Frost Stonehouse Museum. So I
Okay.
have a lot of hats at the college. but I work down, one of my offices is in buildings and grounds, so there might be someone down there that would make sense.
Yeah, I
Absolutely.
think we were talking to someone out there about doing a survey of ash trees because of the emerald ash borer. And one of your buildings and grounds people is going to be doing that because I think we did a survey for the village many years ago, but that's sort of an ongoing potential. I don't think we've had a whole lot of ash death in Bennington County yet, but at some point,
It's
where
coming.
when you go and see where they're dying, it's pretty dramatic. So that would be something for the.
Yeah, I know the ground staff have been mapping and treating some of them or having folks come in and treat them. So it may have been Nate Cornwell or there's 3 groundskeepers, so it could have been any of them. Yeah, I know they're really interested and involved with that work. So.
Fantastic. Michael, thank you so much.
Oh, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, so we'll be in touch with a list of names for you and to go ahead to get this thing rolling.
Okay, great. Well, I hope you have the rest of the night. Have a nice rest of the night.
Great, you too, thank you.
All right, bye.
All right. That can move us on to the library. And I will do my spin around again. You're welcome to sit, you're welcome to stand. If you can see yourself in there, you're in a perfect spot so everyone else can.
Can you all hear me?
I can't hear.
Yeah, okay, great. All right, so, I'm gonna listen from the whole library here, and tonight I am presenting a funding option for ARPA funding. The Board of Trustees, the library trustees, and I are requesting an allocation of $65,000 in ARPA funding to cover ventilation and air quality improvements to the library building. Well, matter of fact, I sent a kind of an outline of this in advance to the trustees. I hope you had the time to look it through, but I'll give you a little bit of a story background on it. So this June, the library's 18-year-old, just about air conditioner, decided to stop working. The air conditioner did. So that kind of put me down a rabbit hole of how do we solve that problem. But at the same time, it was becoming evident that air quality, indoor air quality, librarians across the state were really becoming indoor air quality and filtration experts. Okay, but I'm not near there. Who knew that would have been a thing? And I was able to see that air quality improvements for indoor locations in public buildings align perfectly with some of the guidelines for ARPA spending. And this, what we're planning to do is not a Band-Aid. It's not just a replacement of the air conditioners, which would have gone into our operating budget for next year. This is a more holistic solution that would bring air filtration into the building. It's like an HVAC system, rather than two aged air conditioners and the window open if we can get it, which is just kind of not great for indoor air quality. So let's see. It's really important that the trustees, if you can, get to a decision tonight. I'm supposed to report to the contractors and the architects that are dealing with this. If we get this approved tonight, I can enroll it into this bigger project, which is still on schedule to begin later this month. That's kind of, not to put a sense of urgency in there, but there's a sense of urgency in here. Let's see. Just looking through my notes here, but that's the story behind the why. And it is very much, this specific project is very much in line with the ARPA guidelines. that are there. And this is a great way of demonstrating here are these funds being used for public benefit and to not just repair something, but to put us in a better position for the future. Which is, I think, some of the spirit behind that bill. Yeah, got it. So, I have some folks with me here who are willing to testify a bit on their support for this project. At last count, I didn't turn off signature gathering for the petition that I had up there. We were at 49 plus 17 that were paper form, so like 56. And it's been, in my experience, people have seen sort of the, oh yes, public building, public funding. It hasn't been much, it hasn't taken any convincing that you're looking for public support. So, run the research, it is an option, and a little expediency on this will ensure that we're still on track to begin later this month. So, I don't know what step you want to take next.
You're gonna get dizzy with me flipping this around all the time. Do we have any questions from any of the members or comments?
I would just say that I think this is at least Jenny's third time to this board, and I think regarding this issue,
She's saying
or and I think it's a no-brainer. I mean, we are all kind of a little hesitant about how we're going to approach spending this money that's landed in our laps. But Mary has made it very clear to us, and she is the expert on the ARPA funding regarding how legally how we have to approach it. And I know, because there's already, lots of other people in the wings thinking about grand opportunity. Some of which I really also believe in deeply. And I think that's possible. I think all of that is possible. I think that I'm not sure it's our board's position or prerogative to dream our own ideas, which I think we can all do, and we've done. I mean, we already are doing, but that really this is something where a community comes to us and speaks to the needs they have that fit into those acceptable categories. This one is, for me, just not a, it's like, yeah, I'm all for it. With the understanding that this is kind of an emergency situation. They got to us at the time when suddenly this money became available, and we were able to make this commitment to them. I think we then will, spend some time sitting back a little bit and looking, because I think in the end there will be requests for funds that exceed the funds. But right now the funds are there. This institution, our library is the center of, it and the school are the center of who we are as a, really as a village. And that's not to discredit all the other great things that are happening, but they have a need now, and we have the funds that do not require any taxpayer input. So I'm just saying, I'm fully support this, and will welcome anybody else's comments.
And as I understand it too, you pretty much can't open without this. With respect to COVID right now, obviously, when we're through all this, not if, when we get through all this, certainly the circumstances change, but the need for this doesn't really change. It just becomes more of an inconvenience then than it does a necessity. But it's certainly a worthy plan to think about the future and the quality of what you can offer at the library beyond COVID. So this is right.
It's still like a public health, public safety measure, accessibility, or, air pollution, or our communities who have like compromised immune systems. Not a bad idea. And it allows, there are big recommendations for libraries to build your own, like a DIY air filtration unit that like just hangs out. I don't see that as a long-term solution to what is probably going to be a longer-term problem. And it allows us to build a system into an older building that prepares us for the future, puts us in a good position for the future, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's yeah, no, absolutely.
There have been some lessons learned in all this. I think based on the funds available and the fact that our village doesn't have a lot of call for bigger projects like yours, that we should go ahead with it. And, people may be coming at us asking for money, but perhaps not that quantity, because you're one of the big nonprofits in town. So I'm for it.
And I think, Mary, in your last little summary you sent us too, this is kind of one of those projects that could get the word out that this is available, because part of the reasons why we don't have many requests, it's quite possible a lot of people don't understand, one, what the money can be used for, or that it is available.
Yeah.
So this could be a very public first step to let people know and not deplete it.
It could also kind of be a test drive. It could also be that step by, because I have been to some seminars and there will be some guidance coming out as to how to set up an application for a municipality that isn't available yet. But going through this as a test run would really be able for the trustees to say, oh yes, we answered that question. We answered that question. We checked all of these boxes already.
Yeah, I agree. I think that that's really important. If this somehow can be really publicized so that other institutions will have an opportunity to apply for these, or to come to the village trustees and request funds as well. I just think that would be great if it can somehow be made a thing, and you know what I'm saying, Jenny.
Libraries are really good at disseminating information. So we'll have a project to say, if you're following along here are the steps. So here's the application, or here's the link. This is what you have to do. And here are the steps I took to make sure before I took it to Mary as, hey, this is an option. So yeah, yes, happy to help with that.
What better role of a library and a librarian, but to be the poster child of a project like this. I mean, where to direct people, and I think is on another note, Mary had talked about bathroom projects and how we probably ought to pay some attention to a couple of our own bathrooms in the village. But then I think, well, you know, the school went through a discussion early COVID about doing a similar, HVAC, air exchange kind of thing. Obviously, a more expensive proposal for the school building. But, maybe we can be helpful in that. I don't think we can, swing it all, but just people seeing that these are the kinds of things we can do to improve the quality of our institutions in the village and the air within them,
And I think, so you're requesting the full amount of $65,000,
Yeah.
and this would be,
Well, 75, 65 out of that 75
okay, so that's good to know. So the total project is 75.
for this aspect of the project.
So you're using $10,000 of what you got in your, okay. And then, so this would be in addition, so the total that the village would be, that would be in addition to the 15 that we approved for the last project. Which would still be, I think Mary said roughly a little over $500,000 is what we have in our pocket. Okay, so it's 509,000 is the total.
So like what, 13% of the total?
Yeah, that's what I was kind of getting at is that, and again, realizing that it is one of the bigger institutions in North Bennington, I can't imagine a whole lot of projects coming in with numbers that would exceed that, which would mean we still have the ability to effectively help out pretty much most that would come forward with a project like this. So I certainly don't see a downside. So with that, any other questions, comments from anybody else here or? Oh, sure.
So my name is Dan Rizicki. I live in the village. I'm actually the former president of the Vermont Library Association, Friends of Trustees section. And I work with a lot of Vermont libraries. I've met with friends groups, trustees groups across the state. I've presented at the conference. And I think North Bennington Village has the opportunity to be really seen as a leader in supporting the diversity at libraries across the state through the Vermont Library Association. As Jenny said, librarians are great at disseminating information, and you can help not only the North Bennington Library, but serve as a model for how libraries can take advantage of our funds. So I think it works on a larger level. Another thing that's also important to think of is this as an economic development effort in the village. A lot of people living here these days with expecting to find a great library that has the latest facilities and is easy to use and accessible, and it becomes a great tool for attracting people to the area. So let's just give that much support.
Thank you. Sure, please.
Hi, I'm Jennifer Fells. I'm a resident here in North Bennington on Hope Street. I'm also chair of Apollo Library Board of Trustees. We are shovel ready. This is not something that we're going to do in 10 years or 3 years. We have to think about what we're going to do. We're ready to start in November. This will make it real. Also, the people who will benefit our support in the community, our largest patrons are seniors and children, probably the most vulnerable population. Their access to the outside world is the library. It's a support system on many levels, and so virtual in the library, programming you can see from the library newsletter, everything that the library does to serve this community. So I can't say about what this means to us and the people in our community. We have had gifts, we've had pleas. When is the library going to open? I can't go to the post office without somebody saying, when's the library going to open? So thank you. I appreciate your deliberations.
Thank you. Please.
So my name is Kelly. I hold a code award at the library now. And but before that, I thought it was realistically carries this community COVID in many ways. I don't think COVID is going away, and by that I mean we see that COVID measures are helping with other issues. So it is a public health ongoing. It will solve that for us, and this is the other perfect fit. And I'm not going to reiterate everything that the federal has. I just agree with it all. So, big support.
Thank you. Anything else from anybody out in the computer world? So I guess next step would be to get a feel for the board. It sounds like there's overwhelming support. Yes, I would entertain a motion if one is needed, I believe.
So
You think we're
moved.
ready? Okay,
I'll
so we-
make a motion to dedicate the requested funds to the McCullough Library project for the sake of improving the air quality and all the rest.
Okay, and that would be in the amount of $65,000.
Correct.
Okay, there's been a second. So at this point, I'll show our support with, if we all agree to that, by saying aye. Aye.
Hi.
Okay, we're batting 1,000 with unanimous votes here, so. Thank you all very much, and that motion has approved, so I
Get
guess
her
we
done.
touch with the next steps for that process. I don't really know how the rest of that works, but you can move forward and we will let you know. Mary, I don't know if you have any information on the process moving forward.
Yeah, we can expend funds, I have the board discretion. First report that I would like to give on this is Mary, I believe it's either April or May.
Okay.
The specifics of that reporting, I don't yet know, but all of that will also be forthcoming. The other good news thing is that Jane and the library have done other grants.
Mhm.
Numerous times, I don't have to write information for them. I can just say, here's what the federal government requires, give it to them and they'll produce it for us. Because ultimately, the village is responsible for every penny. And I don't particularly want to have to write it all.
I guess my only question would be, you were saying those funds are available next.
No, we have, 150, we have 100, we have equipment already. We have over $200,000 right now.
Okay, so that was gonna be my concern is that if we say go ahead and that, so if they started this project and it were completed, the funds are available when completed.
We
Okay,
have over $200,000.
Great.
Right now.
Great. Well, thank you very much. We appreciate all your comments and congratulations, and we look forward to seeing the progress.
Thank you. And thank you for the update.
Thank you very much.
I feel good about that one. I think that's great.
So far, there's a lot of feel-good moments in tonight's meeting, so yes, that's another one. And being there are no other citizens here, I think we've completed the citizen comments. Thank you all. And we can move ahead now with treasurer's report.
Not forgetting you, unlike some. Actually, I think they can hear me. I'll look at my camera.
Okay.
But I believe I'm loud enough that they can hear me.
Can you guys hear everything all right when Mary's speaking?
Not so good.
How about now?
We'll just switch
Oh.
places. That's better.
Do you need to show any
Well,
report?
that's good.
It'll be better here.
I did not, tomorrow is the last day, and in case anyone is watching, tomorrow is the last day to pay taxes. I have been here every morning for the last 2 weeks and Saturdays in the mornings. So a lot of people have taken advantage of that opportunity to stop in person. I also take water payments at the same time, which is also a service to folks. Am I on? I hear myself.
You're good.
Okay. So I will be here tomorrow morning from 7 to 10, also from 3 to 5, just in case anybody is that last minute. And we'll go from there. So we'll see where that is. Because it's been so busy with all of that, I have not gotten you like the normal report that I would provide on where we are with cash balances. But there really are no problems there or anything that I can indicate that. I will say that, well, maybe you'll get to it, but just to report that people who have come in and mentioned things, there was a resident who said she was going to come to this meeting and had a problem with the condition of Perrin Road, but I don't know specific. So in case that resident is listening, I did suggest that she do reach out to Norm or the trustees with her specific incident.
What it was? So you don't know his road condition?
Road condition. Something about the road condition.
I mentioned a little bit of that in the highway report.
Okay, then I will leave that for you.
But it might.
But just in case. And then a couple of other, every now and then people say something, come in with a question or a complaint. So if you hear from somebody, I do refer them to, and your battery is running low. Can you plug yourself in? So that's it. I got nothing else to say. Mark's running out of battery.
So with that, what we'll do is, there's only 3 of us here now. We'll just all go off of Mary's computer because I did forget my cord. So I'm just gonna shut this down and Mary will turn on her mic.
Okay, we're on here.
Not bad.
There you go, we're on here.
Yeah, there you go. Now we can get all of us in.
Artfully done.
I love technology, just for the record.
Doing pretty good.
Okay, so treasurer's report done. I will go ahead. Norman is not here, so I will give some quick notes to his report, which he did submit. First off, the leaf cleanup in the parks is moving along. And with that was a big thumbs up to the blower that they purchased. They said that's going very well and working as well as they expected it to for their purposes. So far, so good on that purchase. Basically just changing over equipment from summer duty to winter duty is consuming a lot of their time. Norm did give a prop to Kyle, our new highway employee, is moving along well with his CDL work, is on track, hopefully in the next couple of weeks to take those tests. Has some concerns about plowing, which we may want to discuss at some point. Does not have experience with that, and maybe coming up with a backup plan for the first few storms may not be a bad idea. And I will make it a point to meet with Norm on that to potentially come up with some possible backups that we may have to do a part-time hire, maybe just to do the first couple of rounds with them to put them at ease some. But I will touch base with Norm on that. Leaf blower I mentioned. The Overley Road easement work is underway with the village lawyers. Potholes, which I was actually approached a couple of times last week about the potholes and was going to meet with Norm. And as I met with him, he told me that it was already underway. So they did start that today. So you will notice a lot of the blacktop patching, and they were doing some work on some of the dirt roads as well, which may have addressed the concerns on Perrin Road. But if that person does come forward, they'll let us know. And finally, there is a brief executive regarding highway and employee that we'll touch on that you guys may have noticed in the report that he sent in, but I think best to discuss under executive. And finally, the marble. There were some marble requests. I've met with Norm a bit and was hoping to speak with him tonight. So I did get a chance to stop down in the garage today, and we did speak briefly. We came up with potential that I would like your input. I think I sent this out to you all maybe a couple of weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. There is no requirement of the village to use that marble because it was not removed as part of a state or federal grant. We removed it and did the work on our own. It was not, repairing it was not a viable option. There is some usable marble available. It is a bit of a nuisance for Norm right now because it is taking up some valuable real estate in the in our village garage area. And not knowing much about it, there are a few different options. One, we could easily take pictures and put it out to one of his federal sites and possibly try to get a bid on it and sell it. We thought it might be nice because it is village, it is part of the village and part of the village history. I thought it might be nice that if we did offer it, given we did have at least a handful of requests from village residents, if we come up with a plan to maybe, if you're interested in some of the marble for a residential project at your home within the village, potentially putting through a process of maybe a written plan of what you would use it for. And based on the number of applicants we get for that and plans, we could then, come up with a way to fairly distribute pieces based on maybe number of pieces per person. We're not looking for you to come and build a 30 by 30 patio off the back of your house, but if you had a small walkway project maybe, or some kind of a decorative use for it. We would ask for written requests to be sent to the village with an idea of what you would use it for, with the idea that we don't know how much is going to be available to each person, but smaller projects would be preferred. And based on that, we would come up with a number and have a pickup date, a choosing date, where we would set up an appointment with you. Norm said he's willing to do this. You could go pick out a few pieces and make a plan to come and get it and move it on its way. That was something that we had kind of hashed out, was something that I had come up with and thought it was a good idea. I would love to hear your thoughts. There is money there, but for the amount of money and the amount of trouble and hassle we'll need to get that money, I would rather give it away to people that live in the village so we can still appreciate what was here, and it kind of lives on to tell a new story or continue the story it already has. So this one, I'd love to open it up if anybody has any comments to that, concerns, other ideas, but we would love to make kind of a decision on something to do with it tonight if possible.
I like that idea a lot, Mark.
Me too.
I prefer to keep it in the village.
It should stay in the village. I'm sorry, Tara,
Okay.
what'd you say?
I was just thinking, is there like an application process? Where is it going? Who are they sending it to? Should we put it on the North Bennington Facebook so that people kind of know it's available, or we just kind of let it word of mouth happen?
No, we would have, so the idea was, based on what we come up with here, we would come up with the process basically tonight. And it would be very simple. We're not looking for, engineered plans. But we shouldn't do a word of mouth, because regardless, that will show favoritism, and we don't want to show any favoritism. So we'll put it out on all the places that we currently post meeting notes. So it would be put out there, and then feel free to spread the word as well. But we want to make sure that the information is readily available to everybody evenly and fairly. So yeah, the forum, it could be Facebook, whatever means of media.
Mark, do we become arbiters of the the requests? I mean, I don't really want to get into that.
So yeah, I mean, we can appoint a person just to make sure that the request is valid. But I don't think we're putting ourselves, I don't want to be put in a position where we approve or deny a request. I think the only stipulation I feel is necessary is that it is a request from a village resident that will be used within the village boundaries. Other than that, I mean, I don't, you're right, I don't want to be judge and jury on whether we think your project is worthy. If it's worthy to you and stays in the village, I think that's good enough. That's only my opinion though. So you're right, Matthew. I don't think this is we are looking to judge your project. But we will let you know that if you're looking for a project where you need 20 pieces of marble, likely that's not going to happen because we don't have, we want to make sure it's potential to be spread out. So the project should be reasonable. If you're thinking of a project of maybe 2 to 3 pieces of marble, they're all varying sizes and there's no.
Is there a closing date for applications?
Yeah, well, so we were thinking, I mean, just in talking with Norm, we could make it the next meeting. So we could accept, it would give everybody a month to get it to before the next meeting, and then.
You could make an easy spreadsheet of here's the people who responded, here's about what they want, here's what we have, and then you allocate.
She can make an easy spreadsheet,
I can do that.
but I can read it.
What about having, preferential, process with the nonprofits in town, with, I don't know,
We can ask for that.
Lake Perrin,
Hold on, Mary's got interesting things to say.
oh, good.
Yeah, I'm not sure that, there may be some, like, for instance, Matt Perry's organization, they may want some marble for an art project, which would be pretty darn cool. But in terms of someone wanting it for, say, a sidewalk project or something like that, most nonprofits don't want marble on a sidewalk. There's a liability there. It's not the best sidewalk material anymore. So I'm not sure that would be a huge issue.
Okay.
Yeah. And likely will, I mean, I don't know how much demand there will be from residents, so.
The application could include, are you a nonprofit, just so that we know whether this is a personal use or a nonprofit use thing or a business thing.
So the way we could do that, Matthew, too, is maybe if we decide that there's a number of applicants and we think that maybe, 2 to 3 pieces per applicant would be fair, and maybe a nonprofit had need for maybe a couple more, I think we could probably stretch it in that light, which would certainly be appropriate, but
I like
I mean, the
that.
beauty of this too is if it becomes, it's great to put it out there. And if it becomes something that is untenable, then we can change directions with it.
Shut it down.
Let's give them a month and see what turns up.
And then you just apportion what you have.
Mhm.
To what you
Yes.
requested.
So what we can do is if we all seem like we're in agreement to that, can we post that? So the requirements we would like are, obviously we need their name and address of the project, a brief description of the project, and a commitment. Yeah.
And
We
then-
can ask for a quantity of material, but that will be based on if they're requesting 10 pieces or 7 pieces or whatever, and we have more requests than we have material, then we could just scale it back and say, we'd be happy to give you some pieces. We can't give you the 7 we're looking for.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, you could put in the application potential amount. I would say initially 5 would be a number that is kind of a lot. So if you're thinking about projects, I would not get your hopes up on any more than that.
How big are these pieces?
They're all varying anywhere from the size of the computer. They've got smaller pieces up to half the size of this table. So 6 by 4 roughly. So there's all shapes, sizes, thicknesses.
A lot.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Another question, would that person be the one to come and pick it up? Norm is not delivering this.
No, he's
Right.
not.
No, this would be, the assumption would be, and you would have once we get a feel for the numbers and what we're up against, we would then say, if your project is approved, that you are, what's the word?
Here's your time to come pick it up.
Obligated?
Thank you, that's the one. You are obligated to pick up by a certain date. If you don't, then we will make that material available to somebody else.
Who's writing this?
Lori.
I think Tara is. I think Tara is all about this.
So it sounds like this is potentially, okay, so if we just have, the information we need. And when we post it, obviously, we would have it sent to the village PO box.
Which is,
Well, that will be, I mean, if we're gonna send this out, I would have all that information on the send out. I don't even know what the post office box is.
I don't either.
It's 427.
Okay, thank you. So this will be in the written notice that we send out too, but so post office box 427. Okay, so that's where you would send it, and name, address of potential project, brief description, and potential number of pieces you would need or area you would like to cover. And that would be it. And then, yeah, we'll gather these. We will have more information in the December meeting.
very good.
Okay,
Best we can do.
so,
No?
yeah. So that finalizes the highway report. Next up would be DRB. Anything from DRB?
Nothing new. But you wanna talk about
Is
the-
Chris DRB? Chris Dana?
If we want to talk about that, yeah.
Well, I know in the meeting notes, he was nominated as, he was named as actor. Yeah, he was asking, he's wondering who's,
To hook up with.
Yeah.
Billy was who we appointed, and then
he didn't know that. but
Billy
he-
didn't, or
No,
Chris?
Chris did, and Chris said he had another person who he thought had approached the trustees who,
Do you remember the name?
yes, I do.
Jack?
No,
So.
I don't know that I want to say
Right.
that, but I simply want to mention that Chris Davis is anxious for this board to take
Take
the
action.
next step, because although he is willing to be an active, he's very concerned that it is a detailed process. And he doesn't want what he built to fall by the wayside any more than the next treasurer I want to fall by the wayside.
Right, so it was, I know it was discussed, did we take formal action or do formal notifications
I told Billy he got the position.
as zoning administrator?
Yeah. I didn't talk about the next guy. The one, Jack, that we were gonna appoint as the deputy or something along those lines, I haven't discussed anything with that person.
Well, Chris is not aware of any.
Okay. So,
Billy is ready to go, I believe. Lori, do you have his contact info? Do you wanna put them together in an email?
So Billy was appointed, because I have that in the minutes. But is that as far as it's gone?
Yes.
Chris and Billy need to connect, correct? Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah,
So I can send an email to them, a joint email to them, letting them know.
great. And then I'd love to correspond with Billy on the couple of things that Chris has been working on. When they're connected and ready to go.
yeah,
Okay.
I think, yep, so that's great. And I think some of the confusion is in reading the minutes. I don't believe it was reflected in the minutes.
I don't see it in the minutes.
So we may have, so the minutes we approved tonight, it was not reflected in those minutes.
The what, Mark, say that again?
So this was discussed at the last meeting.
Yes.
No, it was discussed prior to that,
So it was 2 meetings ago.
right?
Okay, so I think that, so therein lies the kind of the confusion, because I know the last couple of meetings, we were losing the chair in the process of
Right.
nominating a new chair, so
Transition.
What I'll
That
do
ex-
is,
that
I'll
explains the
copy,
confusion on my part.
I'll copy everybody on the email when I connect Billy and Chris. So that way you all will have his contact.
Perfect.
Excellent.
Yes, thank you, because I was approached by something, and I know we did ask for a letter of interest, which the
Which
person
we
that
got.
did approach me, I think would probably raise, and we'll talk about it, because again, we don't need to mention names, but I think there was interest expressed to me, and I did mention to that person that I believe we did move somebody forward and wasn't sure where we were in the nomination process, so I will
Right.
follow up with that person.
You want to tell them that there's space on the DRB?
I will do that. So we do still have space on the DRB, always, yes.
Wait,
So I will make that mention to the person to see if they are interested in that.
is that not where Chris wants to be?
On the DRB,
Yes.
but we had Hugh, me, and Jim. And that was it. So adding Chris was only 4, and previously there were 5.
Gotcha.
So there's space for 2.
And Chris can't do that while he's here.
He can't, well, yeah, and Chris can't join until he's done
I
with
get
his
it.
interim position.
Got it. Yep. Okay.
Okay. Planning commission?
Matthew?
Nothing?
What?
Planning commission, anything?
Oh, no, nothing other than we also are a dilapidated, you know, group of members. I don't even know where we stand.
So I think once we get the website up and running.
Yep.
I think project number 1 is to really start a blitz on trying to get some community support in all of this. It seems to be getting tougher and tougher to get people out for a lot of these positions. So I think maybe some door knocking and a lot of work on that website to try to get some people interested in stepping up and helping out.
We got to do it because, yeah. Yeah. And I know.
Aaron wants to talk about website.
Oh, yeah.
I just segue to website. If this
Very
is
good.
appropriate. So I think I just wanted to go over the email I sent maybe a week or so ago, which is I feel like because Courtney had to step away from the website project, we're left with the Peter Pearson, who had given John that original proposal for a Squarespace website. And then I also, at Tara's suggestion, spoke with Lucy Roy, who was a former a Bennington alum, who I've worked with a little bit. I know, Tara, you've worked with her more, I think. She's great.
Yeah, yeah, she was working with the Fund for North Bennington all through the summer on a lot of their ecology projects.
So I spoke with her, and she's actually interested in potentially doing the website as well. She's interested in either, building and working on the website herself, or potentially being like a middle person between us and someone like Peter.
The administrator of the website.
Yeah. So looking back on the proposal from Peter Pearson, it was $1,000 for the design. For ongoing maintenance would be $75 an hour. Lucy quoted us $25 an hour. I don't know that she knows how many hours it would take to build, and I can try to get a better sense from her on that. And then for any work related to meetings or training, that would be $20 an hour. So I guess I'm just sort of wondering, do we want to do we want to consider going with Lucy, or do we want to go with Peter Pearson, who we have a proposal from already? Do we want to involve Lucy in some way? I mean, the nice thing about involving her might be that she's, familiar with the fund. She was part of all of those meetings that they did this summer, I think, and getting.
She's well involved with the community area, so she knows our village and the feel of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of nice. In terms of experience, I know that her father is a website designer, so
Yes.
she pulls a lot of her interest and understanding from him if she ever got bogged down or had any questions.
Yes.
But I thought of her because I know that she has a vested interest in our community. They want to ultimately settle here, and I thought that she would be good for that because she did a great job with the fund for North Bennington.
And I think that she would take it a step further and really help us think through. I think Peter, we're really gonna, I mean, I'm just assuming this because I think this was the way with Courtney. We really have to direct, like, these are the pages that we want, this is, and I think Lucy could actually help us think about what that would look like, which is probably a little different from what we'll get from Peter, but
do we have an idea of numbers from her other than her hourly rate?
I can try to see if she could give us a ballpark of how many hours she thinks it would take to develop a Squarespace. I think Squarespace, as websites go, are pretty straightforward and pretty easy for later for us to maintain if we need to. But I'm sorry, I don't know how many hours. So I can get that, and then maybe once I have that, we could even make a decision over email, if that sounds good. Or
At the very least, we could get more information before we make a decision.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm not too sure we can make a decision like that over email.
Okay.
It might have to wait till the next meeting.
Okay.
Unless we felt it was urgent and we wanted to, we could certainly extend this meeting. If we thought it was that important, or do we think that waiting a month is not that?
Yeah, how urgently do we want to?
Could we say if it didn't exceed the amount that, if she doesn't believe it will exceed the amount that he quoted, that we could go in that direction?
We certainly do that often with highway. I have no problem with that if nobody else on the board does. I don't see any issues with that.
Get
Yeah.
things moving.
I think we've discussed this topic for over a year and talked about our budgets and stuff. And I think settling on a choice would be acceptable by email.
Okay.
Because we've already said we're doing this and we're doing it for this amount of money. I think we can do that.
Okay. So if we were to say it did not exceed prior quotes,
Yep.
that we can, and just notify us who the decision is.
Yep.
And then if it does exceed prior quotes, we'll put it off until next month.
That sounds good.
Okay.
Yay.
Thank you for that.
Thank you, Erin.
Exciting.
Yeah.
And then we can get the hazardous plan in on the website and all
And
that.
then and the snowball keeps going from there. Thank you. Fire department. Other than Ed Myers did send me a text a week or so ago, very excited about their new sign, and it does look great. They removed the wooden lettering that was rotting and falling down here and there, and put up some new, I don't know if they're porcelain or plastic or metal, but it does look very nice. They did a nice job with that.
With regards to the fire department, did Norm mention in his report to you, he was going to talk to the insurance company about the need to put some sort of barrier in there, where the water, where the, on the property there, over by the lake, the water.
No, we didn't talk about that.
Okay.
So the potential that they would need a
Yes,
guardrail set up
yes,
so
we
cars
had
don't.
reached out to the insurance company. I don't know if he had put that in his report.
No, he did not mention that.
It was clear there was something going on with the cones there, and it makes sense that there really ought to be a rail between the corner of that building and the water, for sure.
So I know Norm is off Thursday, Friday, so when I meet with him next, I'll ask him if he did make that contact yet. Thank you, Mary. Okay, water department. I actually did meet with David Shaughnessy, their chair, and we were gonna have regularly scheduled meetings just to go over sharing information and the like. He gave me a few updates on some of the outstanding things that have been happening. And I thought I would just go ahead and report out on those. He and Steve Goodrich are heading to Burlington to meet with their attorney, regarding the Shasta issue. And we're gonna meet next week. He's gonna fill me in on that. He said, in terms of, he wants us to be very involved in all the information that is available, with regard to money and decisions. And he will let me know what information he gives me that I will share with all of you, and which of that can be shared publicly at our meetings. So anything I'm going over now are things that he sent me that I can talk about, but I'll fill the board in on anything that happens, and then we will report out at our monthly meetings on how that's progressing. There was also a little issue they had with Maplebrook, the cheese producing down in the old fiber optics building, with some cloudy water. They're in the process of trying to clean that up. They've given some information on how to clean that up, and they're working alongside of them. The North Bennington variety water issue has been fixed, and they are anticipating some insurance claims in the future. But that seems to be moving along, and the communication is going well between that property owner and the board and the water department. And that is all I got from the water board. New business. I have one that kind of goes along with what we've been talking about, and hopefully will be more good news. It dawned on me that with this ARPA funding, it would be a great time to bring up Welling Field, which is something that, you know, has obviously been a passion of mine to get moving. And it's a great time to tap into both the resources we have been building up over the last several years. We've got a decent amount of money in the Park and Rec fund. But with this ARPA funding, I mean, I would move forward on getting some real numbers to that if the board thought that that might be a worthy project for the ARPA funding as well. It certainly, in my mind, fits into outdoor recreation, health and wellness, all those things that they're looking at. So with Mary's help, and she's kind of nodding at me now, she would absolutely be a resource that I would make sure that whatever we're anticipating doing there fit in with the money. But if I get the okay from the majority, I will start the process of putting some hard numbers to that to see whether we think it's something worth moving forward on.
You got 2 thumbs up.
Okay. All right. So with that, I will start gathering some numbers on that. I would anticipate that the total project anywhere from $20,000 to $40,000 potentially. And again, not wanting to dig too far into that. I would certainly be willing to put some of our saved money toward that as well. But I will get some hard numbers on that for next meeting. Any other new business? Not seeing any movement there. Any old business? Matthew, I was going to ask you, you did send something out, and I'm not sure if it's appropriate or not, but we did have, and I was going to mention this earlier and forgot, on November 1st, we did have a special meeting regarding the cell tower. Those minutes will be available for approval at the next meeting. They were not, we did not get the information down in time to get the notes drawn up for tonight's meeting to approve. But we'll have that for next meeting. I know there has been some movement in that, Matthew. Are there any updates you want to bring up now, or should we wait till next?
No, we can speak to this. We we filed our position with the PUD. And our lawyer has worked with that. So we now have status in this whole process. And so I guess background is that the cell tower is looking for, they go to the Public Utilities Commission, PUC, and they are requesting a certificate of public good, a CPG, and we have filed our counter concerns regarding that, and that's all public information. It can be accessed. The letter can be accessed, the documents, and they now have the PUC has responded rather quickly to our submission, requesting from the entity company that's seeking the CPG to erect the tower, asking for a significant amount of information in response to our request, so or our submittal. So that's where we stand, and I don't think a date has been set for any sort of further. No, I think there's a date for when they need to do that, and then game on. It's how far do they want to go, and how far we have to go.
Right.
So
Yeah,
that's-
so I think I think it's important that we let people know that there were several residents that showed up to that special meeting on the 1st, and they
precisely.
stated their concerns, and we are doing what we can on our end to make sure that their voices are heard. So thank you for that.
And we'll probably need or seek more, should we get to a stage where we need to, we'll seek more input from those individuals. And actually, I got some really good feedback from a few of those people who showed up to that last meeting, with some good background information about how communities should in the future inoculate their communities from this kind of virus that is, so.
Well, thank you very much for that. With that, we do have a very, very, very brief executive session. I guess we would call it under contract employment. So I would entertain a motion to move into executive for a brief.
Like, can I say one thing of old business? Last month, we talked about bike racks being built in town, and the fund for North Bennington was going to be helping to fund it. I spoke to Zen Beatty, who is an architectural grad from Bennington College, and he did send me a small proposal. If we're interested, I can send that to you guys. It might need a little bit of explication. But if you guys are still open to having an artistic bike rack that is made by a Bennington grad, then you could take a look at that.
Oh, I would love to see it.
Okay, I'll send that to you guys.
Indeed.
Awesome.
I'm still waiting to hear from, we believe there is a bike rack, one available in the community, but I have not heard back from the individual who has it in their possession.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'll send it to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And just speaking of bikes and stuff like that, the library has is awaiting to hear back from a grant from another source of Department of Libraries.
And it will include funding a tool library, in addition to the tools that are the energy efficiency tools that the North Shaft Energy Committee has over there. It's going to include a whole station with bike tools and a bike repair station over there. And that will go at the library at a place, and perhaps, actually, that maybe I'll mention that they talk to the Fund for North Bennington and see if they can collaborate on creating a nicer bike station than they have over there. But that'd be kind of nice to work this all in together and have a station where the bikes can actually be repaired as well.
Very cool.
And I apologize if there's no other old business, then we can entertain a motion to move into executive.
I'll make said motion.
I'll second.
All those in favor of moving into executive session indicate by saying aye. Aye. All right,